Episode number 334. The title is, How Important Is It? This is going to be a great episode. You know, one of the things I love about the work that I do is I get to meet so many wonderful people from so many walks of life, and there's so much wisdom, and people just, they share so much with me that I feel this responsibility to want to try to pass along all this that I'm learning. Well, a good friend of mine, a person that I had met years and years and years earlier, she died recently. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about her story because she was so influential in my life. And she had sent me over a list of quotes and sayings that she thought I should have. These were things that she had collected over her lifetime, and it's bits of wisdom. And so I want to pass that wisdom on to you today. And before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about her story. So when I first walked into her house, I sat down at the kitchen table, and there was a little needle point hanging on the wall behind her. And written on the needlepoint was, how important is it? And it was kind of crooked on the wall. She went on to tell me that she hung that on the wall to remind herself to focus on the things in life that are truly important. She said she used to be very, very high-strung, very particular. Everything had to be just so. And for her to have something hanging on her wall that was kind of crooked was not her normal MO, but it was a reminder to her to focus on the things that were really most important in life. Well, she ended up telling me a lot of her story. She talked about some of the pain that she went through after she and her husband retired. Her husband took up drinking, became an alcoholic. She got, after years of being frustrated with him, she ended up going to AlAnon, where she spent 4 years learning how to be married to an alcoholic. And then after 4 years, her husband came to her and he said, you know, what you have is something special. He said, I want what you have. And so she introduced him to Alcoholics Anonymous. He ended up getting sober. He led and mentored a lot of people through Alcoholics Anonymous. She went on to mentor a lot of people through Al-Anon and through AlAnon. And she would tell me when I would meet her, she was in her 80s, I think, when I first met her, but she would tell me how when she went through this period of her life that was so difficult when her husband started drinking. And the weird thing was that he didn't drink their entire marriage. It wasn't until he retired that he started drinking. But she would say to me how hard and how hurtful it was. But now at this phase of her life, she said to me, Jason, I wouldn't do this any other way. She said, the relationships that I have, the mentoring that we do, the people that I get to meet as a result of that time in my life that was really hurtful is really one of the biggest blessings in my life. She and her husband, by the time I met her husband had already died. But she was so proud of him and what he accomplished, and she was so grateful for the opportunity to walk life with people and mentor them through a difficult time in people's lives. So that's a little bit of a backstory on who this lady was. She made it to almost to age 100, and she shared this wisdom with me. Now, before I tell you this, before I share with you these quotes and these sayings that she sent me, a couple neat things about this lady. So when I met her, I was early in my career. I was just getting started, and I was just coming out of my atheist phase. I became a believer shortly after that, but she was such an encourager. And one time after I visited her at her house, she said to me, Jason, you remind me of this preacher I listened to on TV. She said, I recorded this cassette. I want you to have it. And so she gave me this cassette of this guy, and it was so positive and so inspirational. And it still puts a smile on my face. And she would always tell me how I reminded her of this television preacher. And then shortly after I met her, it was actually a couple years after I met her, I was invited to start doing a radio show in the local area. And every Sunday after the radio show would air, she would call the voicemail at the office, and she would leave me this really long message. I mean, she would just keep talking and talking and talking till the answering machine cut her off. She never was able to finish before the answering machine cut her off, but it was always something along the lines of, oh, I just love that show today, Jason, and I loved your joke, and I hope that beautiful family of yours is doing well. And it was just hilarious. And she would do this every Sunday for years. For years, she would call me and leave these messages on my voicemail. And I have to tell you, I'd get in to the office on Monday morning with a stack of stuff to do, and I would press play on the voicemail, and here was this friend of mine leaving me this really nice, kind, encouraging voicemail. And please don't any of you get an idea to start doing this, but with this particular lady, it became known around my office. You know, you come in on Monday morning and there was going to be this really long, very sweet voicemail left. So that's who she was. She was also, and one of the reasons she's so important to me, when I first met her, she would say to me, she said, "Jason, you need to write a book." She said, "The stuff that you teach and you share, it's just so good. You need to write a book." And so when she would call me on these Sunday afternoons, she would always say, "Now I know that book. How's that book coming along?" And I thought she was crazy. I was like, what is this lady's deal? She would just always be telling me. Well, I ended up going to a conference. The gentleman at the conference, the speaker, said that one of the best things he ever did for his business was he wrote a book. And that's finally when the light bulb went off when I was at this business conference. So my first book, I wrote it. I told a little bit of this particular client's story in the chapter titled "Overcoming Having the Courage to Change," the very first chapter. And I told a little bit of her story, how she fell down the steps in her house and ended up having to go to a nursing home for a little while. And when she read that, and she was the one that started me on down this path of, oh, you need to write a book. She was so excited that I would share a little bit of her story in the book. Anyways, she's just this really, really wonderful person. Her daughter called me recently to let me know that she had gone to be with the Lord, that she had died. And I asked her, I said, is there going to be a celebration of life? And she said, every day was a celebration of life for my mom. She said she didn't want to have any kind of big service. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about her story because she really touched my life in a significant way. I don't even know if I would have ever written my first book if it hadn't been for her encouragement. I don't know if I would have kept doing the radio show if it hadn't been for her calling me every Sunday and encouraging me. So with that, what I want to do is I want to share with you these phrases that she said had been given to her from friends over the years, things she had read, things she had written down. I think that we can all learn from somebody who's lived to be almost 100 years old, somebody that had a good, positive outlook on life, somebody that was able to go through a really hard time in their life and turn it around and be able to, at the other end of it, say, boy, I'm so grateful for that hardship because it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings in my life. So I saved, she was an artist. She would send me paintings. She would do paintings for my kids. She would send me these hand-painted cards all the time. I mean, I'm telling you, she was just a really, really special person. Very, very positive. But anyhow, here are her quotes and sayings that I wanted to share with you. And I hope you enjoy this little slice of life from a really, really neat person. So here's the first one. My life is what I allow it to be. The next time you feel perfect, try walking on water. Each day should be unwrapped like a precious gift. Fear is that little dark room where negatives are developed. May my words be sweet and tender, for tomorrow I may have to eat them. Worry is like rocking in a chair. You waste a lot of time going nowhere. Age is simply mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. When you have nothing to say, never say it out loud. When people speak ill of you, live so no one will believe them. Whoever has made me angry has already won. Love the people who hate you. It makes them madder than hell. We shouldn't be concerned about what people think of us, as they seldom do. The best conversationalist in the world is a good listener. Worry is like paying interest on a loan you don't owe. Nothing is opened more times by mistake than the mouth. If someone drives you crazy, don't get in the car. Never miss the chance to shut up. There is no difficulty that enough time will not conquer. A bad attitude is like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you will never go anywhere.